After my car crash, I texted, "I'm in ICU, please pray." My parents sent Miami photos. No one visited. 2 weeks later, 39 missed calls. "Your parents are in trouble." I replied, "Tell them to pray." I am lying in a hospital bed staring at my phone. My left arm is in a cast, my ribs hurt with every breath, and my head is buzzing from the painkillers. It is getting dark outside, and my face is reflected in the window, pale, with a bruise under my eye. I open my Messenger app and see my mother's reply to my message saying that I'm in intensive care. No words of support, no "I'm coming to see you." A photo, a beach, palm trees, 2 cocktails with umbrellas. My mother in sunglasses smiles at the camera. Caption, "Miami is paradise." Sun, sand, emojis. I stare at the screen until the image blurs. Not from tears, from something inside finally snapping. 2 weeks pass. My phone explodes with calls. Mom, mom, mom. 39 missed calls in a day. I don't pick up the phone. Mark sits next to me, holding my good hand, but he doesn't insist. He's learned not to insist. Aunt Viv texts, "Darusha, pick up the phone. Your parents are in big trouble." I stare at the message for a long time. Then I type, "Tell them to pray. Maybe a miracle will happen." I send it. I put my phone face down. Mark squeezes my hand tighter but says nothing. He understands. To understand why I responded that way, you have to go back 26 years. I don't remember my father. My mother never talked about him. No name, no story, nothing. When I asked about him as a child, she just fell silent and left the room. Once, I found an old photo in a drawer, my mother pregnant, smiling, but alone. No man by her side. I put the photo back and never asked again. I understood that this was a topic that should not be touched upon. When I was a year old, my mother met Ethan Coleridge. He was 16 years older than her, owned a chain of hotels, and had a wife. His wife, as Aunt Viv later recounted, cried and threw a tantrum when Ethan packed his things. My mother stood by his car with a stroller in which I was sitting. Viv said that my mother looked like a winner then. She got what she wanted. A man with money who could give her stability and security. Ethan took us to his house. It was big, with a pool and rooms where footsteps echoed. Mom was happy. I was just a kid who came with the package. I always felt that way. Ethan wasn't cruel. He didn't hit me or yell at me. He just never acted like I was his daughter. He didn't show up at school events. When the teacher asked why my dad didn't come to the performance, I said he was away on business. Mom would then explain that he had an important meeting, that he was very busy, that I had to understand. I nodded. I learned to be convenient. I remember my 8th birthday. My mother baked a cake and decorated the living room with balloons. She invited a few children from my class. Ethan promised to come at 5. I sat by the window and waited for his car. 5, 6, 7. The children left. Mom took down the balloons. Ethan arrived at 9 in the evening, drunk and cheerful with some woman. He didn't even come into the house. Mom went out on the porch. They argued in whispers. The woman sat in the car and looked at her phone. Then Mom went into her room and cried into her pillow, and I pretended to be asleep. At 10, I stopped waiting for Ethan to come for the holidays. At 12, I stopped telling him about school. At 15, I heard something that put an end to it all. I was walking down the hallway past his office. The door was ajar, and I heard voices. Ethan was talking to his business partner, a man in his 50s who sometimes came over for dinner. "Christy is a good woman," said the partner, "and her daughter is a beautiful girl, smart." "The daughter is ballast that came with the package," Ethan replied matter-of-factly, as if he were talking about furniture or an old car. "But Christy is worth it. She's beautiful, young, doesn't make a fuss over trifles. She's easy to get along with." The partner laughed. I froze in the hallway. I didn't cry. I didn't run into the room. I just stood there for a minute, then walked on as if I hadn't heard anything. But that night, lying in bed, I decided I would never try to please Ethan again. Why? He had already made up his mind about me. Mom knew he didn't love me. She saw it, but she kept quiet. She clung to him because he provided for us. Without him, she would have been a single mother with no education, no money, no home. With him, she was the wife of a successful businessman who didn't have to work, could go to resorts, and live in luxury. The price was simple: turn a blind eye to his infidelities. And there were many. Ethan didn't particularly hide it. He would call other women right at the dinner table. He would disappear on weekends without explanation. Once I saw him kissing some blonde woman near his hotel. I was riding by on the bus after school. I came home and didn't say anything to my mom. Why should I? She already knew. Sometimes my mother would cry quietly in the bathroom, but she would come out with perfect makeup and a smile. At dinner, she would tell Ethan how her day had gone, and he would nod without listening, looking at his phone. I sat next to them and ate in silence. The three of us at the big table, a family on paper. When I got into dental school, Ethan said he wouldn't pay for my tuition. "You earn it, you pay for it," he said over dinner, cutting his steak. "Ethan, she'll be studying. She won't have time to earn enough," Mom began cautiously. "Then let her take out a loan. I'm not going to waste money on someone else's education," he replied and changed the subject to his hotels. Mom said nothing. Neither did I. I went to my room and started looking for a part-time job. I found a job as a waitress in a coffee shop on weekends. The pay wasn't great, but it was something. A few months later, my mother came to me and handed me an envelope with money in it. There were several $1,000s. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "I saved it," she replied briefly without looking me in the eye. "Does Ethan know?" "He thinks I'm spending it on cosmetologists and procedures. I told him I was getting Botox and fillers, but really I was saving it for you." I took the money. I didn't say thank you, because along with gratitude, I felt a lump in my throat. Mom could have fought for me. She could have told Ethan to his face that she would give her daughter money for her education, but she chose to do it secretly so as not to upset him, so as not to create conflict. I was her daughter, but he was more important. He always had been. I graduated from college with good grades. I got my diploma and found a job at a small clinic in Portland. I moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. My communication with my mother became less frequent. At first, we talked on the phone once a week, short conversations about nothing, then once a month, then once every 6 months. The conversations were short and formulaic. "How are you?" "Fine, how are you?" "Fine too. Ethan is back in Dubai, opening a new hotel." "Good. Well, bye. Bye." I wasn't offended. I just accepted that it was easier for everyone that way. Mom chose her life. I chose mine. We existed in parallel, sometimes crossing paths in short text messages on holidays. "Merry Christmas." "Thank you, you too." And that's it. At 27, I live in a small apartment, work as a dentist, and date Mark Devereaux. He is a lawyer, a year older than me, calm and reliable. We met a year ago in a coffee shop. He spilled coffee on my bag, got flustered, and invited me to dinner to apologize. I agreed because he seemed safe to me. No drama, no wild emotions, no promises forever. Just a good man who cooks dinner, watches TV shows with me, and doesn't get offended when I want to be alone. We talked about moving in together. We weren't rushing, but we weren't putting it off either. We were just taking it slowly, without pressure. Mark had already left some things at my place. His toothbrush, a change of clothes. I had left some at his. We were at a stage where everything seemed easy and right. And then the accident happened. It was a normal Tuesday. I finished my shift at 7 in the evening, said goodbye to my colleagues, got in the car, and drove home. The streets were already dark. It was drizzling, and puddles glistened on the road. I thought about the pasta Mark had made yesterday that was still in the fridge at home. I turned on some music, something calm, background music. I drove up to the intersection. The light was green. And then, a blow from the side. Sharp, unbearable. The sound of metal, glass, pain exploding throughout my body at once. Darkness. I woke up in the hospital. The white light hurt my eyes. Mark was sitting next to me, his face pale, his eyes red, his lips pressed together. "You're in the hospital," he said quietly, as if afraid to scare me by speaking louder. "You were hit by a car at the intersection. The driver ran a red light. You could have died, Dara." His voice breaks on the last words. I want to say something reassuring, but my throat is dry and only a wheeze comes out. The doctors arrive, examine me, and speak in medical terms. Then they explain it more simply. A broken left arm, 3 broken ribs, a concussion. It could have been worse, much worse. I'm lucky. I'm lying under an IV and my whole body aches with a dull, pervasive pain. Mark doesn't leave my side. He holds my good hand, strokes my fingers, and says nothing. I stare at the ceiling and suddenly feel that I want to hear my mother's voice. Not Ethan's, my mother's. I want her to come, sit next to me, and say that everything will be fine, even if it's not true. I pick up the phone with my good hand. My fingers are shaking. I open the Messenger app and find the family chat. There are 3 participants, me, my mom, and Ethan. The last message from my mom was 3 months ago. "Happy birthday." I replied, "Thank you." I type slowly because my hand doesn't obey me well. "I'm in intensive care. Please pray." I send it. I put the phone on the bed next to me. I wait. Mark looks at me but doesn't ask any questions. He knows about my relationship with my family. Not everything, but enough to understand that it's complicated. An hour passes. The phone is silent. I doze off, wake up in pain, doze off again. Mark sits in a chair nearby, doesn't even leave to eat. The nurse brings me water and helps me drink. Then, vibration, a message. I open my eyes and reach for my phone. It's from my mom. I open it. No words, photo, beach, ocean, palm trees, 2 cocktails on a table with umbrellas, mom in sunglasses, tanned, smiling in a bright dress. Caption, "Miami is paradise." Sun emoji, palm tree emoji, cocktail emoji. I look at the screen. I reread my message. "I'm in intensive care. Please pray for me." I look at her reply. Beach, cocktails, smile. Something inside me breaks, not with a crash, not with pain. Quietly, like glass that has been cracking at the edges for a long time, finally shattering into tiny pieces that can no longer be put back together. I put my phone face down on the bed. Mark looks at me, then at the phone. He doesn't take it, doesn't look to see what's there. He just squeezes my hand tighter. He doesn't ask what happened. He doesn't say, "Maybe she didn't understand," or "Maybe she'll answer later." He just sits next to me. I look at the ceiling and feel emptiness. Not pain, not resentment, just emptiness. As if the place where my mother should have been, where there should have been care and love, had simply disappeared, evaporated, and all that remained was a white spot that nothing could fill. I am discharged in 2 weeks. Mark comes to pick me up in his car. Mine is still being repaired after the accident, if it can be repaired at all. The nurse takes me to the exit in a wheelchair, even though I can walk on my own. "Protocol," she says. Mark helps me into the car carefully, as if I were made of porcelain. My arm is in a cast, my ribs are bandaged, and my head still feels dizzy sometimes. The drive home is short, but every bump in the road causes pain in my ribs. I grit my teeth and stare out the window. Mark drives slowly, carefully, silently. He turns on soft music that isn't annoying. He has taught me well this year. The house is clean. He tidied up while I was away. There are fresh flowers in a vase on the table, food in containers in the refrigerator. He prepared everything in advance so that I wouldn't have to stand at the stove. I look at all this and feel gratitude mixed with something heavy. He gives me what my mother never gave me: simple, unconditional care. "Lie down, rest," Mark says, helping me to the sofa. I lie down, he covers me with a blanket, puts water and pills next to me. "Thank you," I say quietly. "You're welcome." He kisses me on the forehead and goes to the kitchen. I lie there and stare at the ceiling. Silence. It's quiet, cozy, and safe at home. But inside me is an emptiness that even Mark's care cannot fill. I think about that photo from Miami, about how my mother never wrote again. Not a word, not a question. Like me, nothing. The first days at home are painful and boring. The physical therapist comes 3 times a week, works on my arm, shows me exercises. It hurts so much that I sometimes cry, but not because of the pain in my arm, but because everything inside me is burning with a dull resentment that I don't want to feel, but it's there. Mark works from home so he can be close to me. He sits at his laptop, does business, calls clients, and I lie on the couch and listen to his voice. He speaks confidently, professionally, and it makes me feel calm. In the evening, he cooks dinner, talks about work, tries to make me laugh. I smile, but inside everything is numb. He doesn't ask about my mother. I don't say anything either, but I see the question in his eyes when he thinks I'm not looking. Why didn't she come? Why didn't she call? He doesn't understand because his family is normal. His mother would have come in a matter of hours if something had happened to him. She would have sat in the hospital, held his hand, and cried with relief when he woke up. But my mother is not like that. On the 3rd day at home, Aunt Viv calls. I look at the screen where her name is lit up and ignore the call. She calls again. I ignore it again. Then a text message arrives. "Darusia, I know you're angry, but please pick up the phone. I need to talk to you." I put my phone face down. Mark looks at me from the kitchen, but doesn't ask any questions. The next day, the calls from my mom start. 1, 2, 3. I don't answer. She sends text messages. "Darusia, pick up the phone. Please, it's important. Daughter, answer me." I read them and feel nothing. It's like reading messages from a stranger. One evening, as we sit at dinner, Mark cautiously asks, "Maybe you should answer her, just so she doesn't worry?" I put down my fork and look at him. When I was going through a tough time, she was having fun at the beach. Now she needs something, and she remembered she has a daughter. Mark is silent. He nods. "Okay, I'm sorry. I had no right." "You have the right to ask, but I don't want to talk to her. Not yet." He takes my hand and squeezes it. I understand. The calls don't stop. Mom calls 5, 10 times a day, then again. I don't answer. It's not about the pain anymore. It's about a decision that has matured inside me over the years. I allow myself to finally be angry, not to justify my mother, not to understand her, not to look for explanations, just to be angry. On the 10th day at home, as I sit on the couch watching a TV series without paying attention to the plot, I get a text message from Viv. "Darusia, pick up the phone. Your parents are in big trouble. Ethan has been arrested. Your mom is panicking. She needs help." I read the message. I reread it. Ethan has been arrested. Mom is panicking. They need help. Something cold and clear rises inside me. Not sympathy, not fear, justice. Cold, precise justice. I type my reply slowly, weighing each word. Tell them to pray. Maybe a miracle will happen. I send it. I put down my phone. I feel my heart beating steadily, calmly. Mark comes out of the kitchen where he was making coffee and looks at me. "What happened?" "Itana has been arrested. Mom is in trouble." He sits down next to me, takes my phone, and reads my message. He is silent for a long time. Then he says quietly, "You have the right to be angry." These are the first words that don't try to convince me to forgive, to understand, to call. Just an acknowledgement of my right to feel what I feel. I look at him, and suddenly the tears I've been holding back for 2 weeks burst out. I cry, and Mark hugs me gently so as not to hurt my ribs. He doesn't say, "Everything will be fine," or "calm down." He just holds me. Mom calls again. This time I pick up the phone. Her voice is tired and worried. "Darusia, finally. Listen, I know you don't want to talk to your mother, but the situation is serious. Ethan was arrested the day before yesterday. He's accused of tax evasion and document fraud. All his accounts have been frozen. His business partners have turned their backs on him. No one is answering his calls. Your mom is all alone. She has $500,000 in cash that she's been hiding, I say coldly. Viv is silent for a second. How do you know? I guessed. Mom has always been cautious. Viv sighs. Yes, there is money, but she needs a lawyer for Ethan, a good lawyer, and she wants to ask Mark to defend Ethan. If they win the case, they'll pay. I remain silent. Viv continues quickly, as if afraid I'll hang up. I know how it sounds. I know she didn't come to see you when you were in the hospital. I told her it was terrible, but she's in a bad way right now. She cries all day. Ethan was all she had. Except for her daughter, I say quietly. Viv is silent. Then she says, almost in a whisper, I know. I'm sorry. I hang up. I look at Mark, who is sitting next to me and has heard everything. She wants you to defend Ethan for free. If you win, they'll pay later. Mark shakes his head. Dara, I can't. Even if I wanted to. I don't specialize in tax cases of this magnitude. It requires a team of lawyers, experts, and even if I could, I don't work for free for people who treated you the way they did. I nod. I know, I'm not asking you to do that. He takes my hand. But if you want me to talk to your mom, explain. No, don't. I'll talk to her myself. But I don't talk to her. Not to Mom, not to Viv. I just stay silent. Silence is the most painful answer I can give. The calls continue for several more days. Mom, Viv, Mom, again. I ignore them all. I read the text messages. Darussia, please. Daughter, I know you're angry, but we really need this. Ethan is facing prison. Help us. I read them and feel nothing. It's as if these messages aren't addressed to me. One evening, as Mark and I are sitting on the couch watching a movie, a long message arrives from Viv. She describes the situation in more detail. The Internal Revenue Service is accusing Ethan of tax evasion amounting to several $1 million over the past 5 years. In addition, there are suspicions of fraudulent schemes involving hotel documents. If he is convicted, he could get up to 20 years. All his assets have been seized: hotels, cars, house. All that's left is the apartment in Miami, which for some reason they haven't touched, and that cash. Mom hired a lawyer, but he took the advance payment and disappeared. Now the money is running out and there's no defense. The trial is in a month. Your mom is begging, Viv writes at the end. She realizes she was a bad mother, but now she's desperate. I put my phone down. Mark reads over my shoulder. That's awful, he says. Yeah, but you're not to blame for their problems. I know. He hugs me. What do you want to do? I think for a long time. Then I say, nothing. I don't want to help them. Is that cruel? No, it's honest. I look at him. What if Ethan goes to jail? What if Mom is left all alone? Then she'll feel what you've felt your whole life. His words are harsh, but true. I nod. Another week goes by. Mom keeps calling, but the texts are different now. They're no longer requests for help. They are accusations. You're my daughter. How can you do this? I've always loved you. I've always cared for you. You're ungrateful. I read these messages and feel the anger I've been hiding for years bursting out. She loved me? She cared for me? I write to her for the first time in 3 weeks. You sent me photos from the beach while I was in intensive care. You didn't come. You didn't call. And now you want me to help the man who called me dead weight? Do you really think I owe you anything? I send it. I put my phone down. My heart is beating fast. My hands are shaking. Mark sits next to me, silent. He takes my hand and squeezes it. Mom doesn't answer. The calls stop for a few days. Then they start again, but less frequently. I don't pick up the phone. Viv writes that Ethan has been sentenced. 15 years. All his property has been confiscated, except for the apartment in Miami and the cash. Mom is left alone. I read the message and feel nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Mark hugs me and kisses me on the temple. You're a good girl, he says quietly. I'm cruel, I say. No, you're honest with yourself. Finally. I close my eyes and lean against his shoulder. The silence I have chosen is heavy, but it is mine. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel the need to justify my choice. A month after Ethan's conviction, I return to work. The cast is off, my arm is still weak, but it's responding. My ribs only hurt in the morning when I get out of bed. The clinic director, Sandra, hugs me gently and says I can work part-time until I feel better. I thank her, but ask for a full schedule. I need work. I need something to fill my head so I don't think about everything else. The first day is difficult. My hands shake when I hold the instruments. The patient, a woman in her 40s, looks at me suspiciously. Are you sure you're okay? She asks. Yes, sorry, it's just my first day back after sick leave. She nods and calms down. I do my work slowly, with concentration. I clean teeth, put in fillings, talk calmly. Gradually, the trembling subsides. Focusing on other people's teeth, on small problems that can be solved in an hour, helps. Here, I am in control of the situation. Here I can fix something. In the evening, I come home exhausted. Mark meets me with dinner and asks how my day went. I give him a brief answer and eat in silence. He doesn't insist on talking, and I'm grateful for that. The calls from my mother continue, but less frequently, once every 2 days. I don't answer the phone. Text messages come every day. At first, they are pleading, Darusia, please talk to me. Daughter, I understand that you are angry, but it is very difficult for me right now. Itana was sentenced to 15 years. I am left alone. I read them sitting on the sofa in the evening when Mark is in the shower or in the kitchen. I read them and feel nothing. It's as if they were messages from a stranger who dialed the wrong number. Then the tone changes. The text messages become harsher. You're my daughter. How can you do this? I've always loved you. I always took care of you. I gave you all my money for your education. You are ungrateful and cruel. I read these words and feel anger flaring up inside me. She loved me? She took care of me? I want to respond, to yell, to write everything that has accumulated over the years, but instead, I just block her number. The silence becomes absolute. Viv keeps calling. One evening, when I'm almost asleep, she calls again. I pick up the phone because I know she won't let up. Darusia. Viv's voice is tired, almost hopeless. I'm not asking you to help them. I just want you to know what's going on. Okay, I'm listening. Viv sighs. Christy is in Miami now, in that apartment. She doesn't go out, she hardly eats. I visited her last week. She's lost weight, looks 10 years older. She sits all day staring at one spot. I'm silent. Viv continues, but that's not all. Women have started coming to see her. Ethan's former lovers, 3 women. One is 50 years old, Lorraine. She insists that Ethan promised her a share in one of the hotels. She says she invested her money in renovations and now wants compensation. Another, Tiffany, young, about 30, says Ethan promised to buy her an apartment. The third, Jessica, is demanding money for the time she spent with him. They are all threatening Christy with a lawsuit or a scandal in the press. I listen and suddenly feel something like satisfaction, a cold, unpleasant satisfaction. Mom has turned a blind eye to Ethan's infidelities her whole life, and now these women are coming out of the shadows and demanding their share. What is Mom doing? I ask. Crying, yelling at them, trying to send them away. But they're persistent. Lorraine has already filed a lawsuit. Tiffany is threatening to tell the press that Ethan kept her for 5 years. Jessica just comes and stands at the door, demanding to see him. I imagine my mother sitting in the apartment with the women her husband cheated on her with standing outside the door. I smile in the dark. Darcy, Viv's voice softens. I understand that you don't care, but she's your mother, and she's really at rock bottom right now. Viv, I say quietly, when I was in intensive care, she sent me a photo from the beach. She didn't come. She didn't even call. And now you want me to feel sorry for her? Viv is silent. Then he says, almost in a whisper, "No, I don't want to. I just don't know what else to do." "Nothing. Don't do anything." I hang up the phone. Mark comes out of the bathroom and sits down next to me. "Viv?" he asks. "Yes. She was talking about my mother." "Is that bad?" "It depends on your point of view." He takes my hand and kisses my palm. "Are you holding up?" "Yes. Strangely enough, yes." We go to bed, and I stare at the ceiling for a long time until Mark falls asleep next to me. I think about my mother, sitting alone in Miami, surrounded by the ghosts of Ethan's past. I think about how she endured his betrayals her whole life for money. Now the money is running out, Ethan is in prison, and all that's left are these women who remind her of every betrayal she missed. I don't feel sorry for her, only emptiness. Another 2 weeks pass. Work consumes me completely. Patients, procedures, paperwork. I come home exhausted, eat, watch TV series with Mark, go to bed. The routine is soothing. One morning, as I'm getting ready for work, Mark cautiously says over breakfast, "Dara, I'm not saying you have to help her, but maybe you should talk to her, at least to close this chapter. Otherwise, it will hang over you for the rest of your life." I put down my coffee cup and look at him. "I'm not ready." "Okay," he takes my hand. "Just think about it, when you're ready." I nod, but inside I know I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to hear excuses, pleas, accusations. I just want to move on, as if she doesn't exist. But a week later, a voice message from my mother arrives. It's long, almost 4 minutes. I see the notification and immediately want to delete it, but Mark accidentally presses it when he picks up my phone to check the time. My mother's voice comes out of the speaker, and I don't have time to turn it off. "Darusha." Her voice is hoarse, broken, barely recognizable. "I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I have no right to ask you to listen, but I want you to know I was a terrible mother." I freeze. Mark looks at me, wanting to turn it off, but I shake my head. I keep listening. "I traded you for Ethan. I traded my daughter for a man who cheated on me with dozens of women. I knew about them. I knew about every one of them. I saw the lipstick on their collars, smelled the unfamiliar perfume, but I turned a blind eye because I was afraid of being left without money, without this house, without stability. I was weak, Darusha, terribly weak." Her voice breaks. I hear her crying. "When you were in the hospital, I was in Miami. Ethan took me there for a week because he wanted to spend time with Tiffany, that young girl. I knew he was with her, but I went because he said so. When I got your message, I wanted to come. But Ethan said you were fine, that it was just for drama, and I believed him, because it was easier that way, not to argue with him, not to ruin the vacation. I sent you that photo because I didn't know what else to write, how to justify not coming. I thought you would understand, but you didn't have to understand. I'm a mother. I had to be there." A long pause, then the voice again, quieter. "Now Ethan is in prison. All the money is almost gone. Those women are demanding compensation. The lawyers took a lot of money, and nothing came of it. I'm alone in this apartment. And you know what's the worst part? I finally saw the truth. He never loved me. I was convenient, pretty, obedient, someone who turned a blind eye. And you were inconvenient. You reminded him that I had been with someone else before him, that I wasn't perfect, and he hated you for it. And I allowed it. I allowed him to treat you as if you were worthless because I was afraid of losing him." She cries louder, gasping for breath. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for help. I just want you to know, I understand. I understand that I was a bad mother, that I traded you for a man who wasn't even worth a minute of my time. I'm sorry, Darusha. I'm sorry." The message ends. I sit motionless, staring at my phone. Mark carefully takes it away and puts it on the table. He hugs me. I cry. For the first time since the accident, I cry for real. Not from pain, not from anger, but because something inside me has finally broken through. All those years when I convinced myself that I didn't care, that I wasn't waiting for my mother's love, that it didn't hurt. All of that bursts out, and I can't stop. Mark holds me, strokes my back, says nothing. He's just there. And that's enough. I cry for a long time. Then I wipe my face and sit quietly. Mark gives me water, and I drink it in small sips. "What do you want to do?" he finally asks. "I don't know," I say honestly. Part of me wants to call her, but another part is still angry, still remembers everything. "That's okay. You don't have to make a decision right away." I nod. We sit in silence. I think about my mother sitting in Miami and crying, about how she finally accepted the truth. But is that enough? Does it change anything? I don't know the answer. For now, I just sit next to Mark and allow myself to feel the pain I've been hiding for years. I allow myself to be weak. I allow myself not to know what to do next. And strangely enough, it's a relief. I don't call my mom after that voicemail. I don't answer it. I don't text her. I just go on with my life as if nothing happened. But something has changed inside. The pain I've been hiding for years is now on the surface, and I don't know what to do with it. Mark notices. Of course he notices. One evening, as we sit on the couch and I stare at a single point instead of watching the show, he turns off the TV. "Dara, I want to suggest something to you, but promise me you won't be offended." I look at him warily. "What?" "Maybe you should talk to someone, a psychotherapist, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because sometimes it helps to figure things out with a professional." I want to wave him off, say that I can handle it myself, but instead I hear myself say, "Okay." Mark blinks in surprise. "Seriously?" "Yes, I think I need it." He kisses me on the forehead and hugs me. "I'll find someone good, I promise." A week later, I'm sitting in a psychotherapist's office. Her name is Elaine. She's in her 50s. She has calm gray eyes and a voice that doesn't irritate. The office is small, cozy, and smells of lavender. "Tell me why you're here," she says, sitting down opposite me. I don't know where to start. With the accident? With my mother? With that voice message? I decide to start with the simple stuff. I had a difficult relationship with my mother. Now she wants to reconnect, and I don't know if I want that. Elaine nods. "Tell me about that relationship, from the very beginning." And I tell her about how my mother gave birth to me by an unknown man, about Ethan, who appeared when I was a year old, about how I grew up feeling like a burden about Ethan's infidelities, which my mother ignored, about how she gave me money for my education, but secretly, so as not to upset him, about the accident and that photo from Miami. Elaine listens attentively, without interrupting. When I finish, she is silent for a long time, then says, "Dara, do you feel guilty for not wanting to help your mother?" I think for a moment. Sometimes. She's my mother. Society says I should help her, love her, forgive her. And what does your heart say? That I'm angry, very angry, and beneath that anger is pain, the pain of the girl who wasn't chosen. Elaine nods. Anger is a natural reaction to pain. It's a way to protect yourself. But if you hold on to it for too long, it will eat you up inside. Not for your mother's sake, but for your own. You need to find a way to let go of that pain. But how? She's still there. Mom still exists, and she wants something from me. She wants forgiveness, but you don't have to give it to her, at least not now, maybe never. But you can choose not to hold on to the pain, not for her sake, for your own sake. I drive home after the session and think about her words, not for my mother's sake, for my own sake. It sounds right, but it's scary. Letting go of the pain is like letting go of a part of myself. I continue to see Elaine for the next few weeks. Each session is like digging into myself, into my past, into the wounds I've been covering up for years. It's hard, exhausting, but after each session, I feel a little lighter. During one of the sessions, Elaine asks, "Dara, what are you most afraid of?" I think for a long time. What if I give her a chance and she lets me down again? What if I open up and she takes advantage of it? "It's a risk," Elaine says calmly, "but you can set boundaries. You don't have to let her in right away. You can take small steps, meet once a month, have a short conversation, see how she behaves. If she crosses the line, back off. You're in control, not her." Small steps, boundaries, control. It sounds possible. One evening, a month after starting therapy, I'm sitting on the couch with my phone in my hands. Mark is in the kitchen making dinner, and I can hear him whistling. I look at my mom's number in my contacts. My heart is beating fast. I dial the number before I have time to change my mind. Rings. 1, 2, 3. Then my mother's voice, surprised, cautious. "Darusha?" "Hi, Mom." A long pause. I hear her crying. "You called. I didn't believe you would call." "Me neither." We are both silent. Then I say, "Because otherwise I will change my mind. I'm not ready to forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. But I don't want to hold on to this pain anymore. It's eating me up. And I want to try, I don't know, talk. But there are conditions." "Anything," she says quickly, breathlessly. "Anything. We'll meet in a month, not sooner. I need time to prepare. You won't call me. You won't write. If I want to talk to you, I'll call you myself. Understand?" "Yes, I understand. And one more thing. If you try to manipulate me, accuse me, or demand anything even once, I'll leave. Forever. This is your last chance." She cries louder. "I understand. Thank you, Darusha. Thank you for giving me this chance." I hang up the phone, my hands shaking. Mark comes out of the kitchen and looks at me. "Did you call her?" "Yes." He sits down next to me and takes my hand. "How are you?" "I don't know. Scared. But I think it's the right thing to do." He kisses me on the temple. "I'm proud of you." The next day, Viv calls me in the morning, her voice excited. "Darusha, Christy called me. She said you agreed to meet. Is that true?" "Yes, but not for another month." She's so happy. She's crying with joy. She says she's moving from Miami, finding a job, starting a new life. I remain silent. Viv continues more softly. "Darusha, I know you don't trust her, and rightly so, but she has really changed. She's aged, lost weight, looks different. She's no longer the glamorous woman she used to be. She's more honest." "We'll see," I say briefly. A week later, Viv calls again and tells me that my mother has indeed moved. She rented a small apartment in Portland, not far from me, but not too close. She got a job as a cashier at a supermarket. It's the first time she's worked in over 20 years. She comes home tired, says her feet hurt, that customers are sometimes rude, but she's hanging in there. She says this is her chance to prove to you that she can change. I listen and don't know what to feel. Part of me wants to believe her. Another part is wary, expecting a trick. Meanwhile, changes are happening in my life. Mark and I decide to move in together. Officially, forever. He finds an apartment a little bigger than mine with 2 bedrooms and a balcony. We sign the lease and begin the moving process. We pack our things and argue over trifles. Mark wants to throw away my old lamp, which I love. I don't want to throw it away. He says it's ugly. I say it's my lamp and it's staying. We argue for an hour, then laugh because we realize how silly it is. "Okay, the lamp stays," he concedes, "but we're not putting it in the bedroom." Deal. The move takes the whole weekend. We carry boxes, assemble furniture, and argue over the instructions for the cabinets. Mark can't figure out where to put the screws. I try to explain. He doesn't listen, does it his way. Then the cabinet falls. We both sit on the floor among the parts and laugh. "Maybe we should hire someone?" I suggest. "No, I can do it," he insists. "Just give me another hour." 3 hours later, the wardrobe is standing. Crooked, but standing. Mark looks at it with pride. "See? I told you so." I kiss him. "You're great." We furnish the apartment gradually. We choose curtains together, arguing about which ones are better. I want light ones. He wants dark ones. We agree on a compromise, gray ones. We buy plants. I forget to water them. They start to wilt. Mark saves them and takes responsibility for the flowers. This process, mundane and a little boring, strangely brings us closer together. We become a team, not just a couple. We learn to compromise, to argue and make up, to share space and responsibilities. One evening, as we sit on the balcony with wine and look out over the city, Mark says, "You know, I think this accident, oddly enough, has brought us closer together." I look at him. How so? Before the accident, we were cautious. We kept our distance. We didn't talk about difficult things. But now, you trust me. You share what hurts, and I feel like we're really together. I smile. Yes, you're right. Meanwhile, the day of my meeting with my mother is approaching. I'm getting more and more nervous. I rehearse conversations in my head, imagining what she will say and how I will respond. Elaine helps me prepare during our sessions. "Remember your boundaries," she says. "If she starts manipulating or accusing you, you can always leave. You are in control of the situation." I nod, but inside I'm scared. What if she hasn't changed? What if this is just a game? A week before the meeting, Viv calls and says my mother is very nervous. She bought a new dress, got her hair done, wants to look good. I listen and feel a mixture of emotions. Part of me wants her to have really changed. Another part is preparing for disappointment. One evening, Mark asks, "Do you want me to go with you?" "No, I have to do this myself, but you can wait in the car just in case." "Sure." The day before the meeting, I hardly sleep. I lie next to Mark, stare at the ceiling, and run through possible scenarios in my head. What if she starts crying? What if she blames me? What if I can't control my emotions? Mark wakes up and sees that I'm awake. "Hey, everything will be fine." "How do you know?" "I don't know, but if it goes badly, you can just leave, and I'll be there for you." I snuggle up to him, and he hugs me. Gradually, I fall asleep. On the morning of the meeting, I wake up with a heavy feeling in my chest. Mark makes breakfast, but I can't eat. I drink coffee and look out the window. "Are you ready?" he asks. "No, but I have to be." We drive to the coffee shop where we agreed to meet. It's neutral territory, a crowded place, easy to leave. Mark parks nearby. "I'm here. If anything happens, text or call me." I nod, kiss him, and get out of the car. I walk slowly to the cafe, my heart pounding so loudly that it seems everyone can hear it. I go inside and look around, and I see my mother. She is sitting at a table in the corner, looking at the entrance. When she notices me, she stands up abruptly, her face contorts, and she starts to cry. I walk towards her, and with every step I feel something heavy tightening inside me. It's my mom, but she looks like a stranger. She has aged. She looks about 60, although she is 52. Her hair is gray, undyed, tied back in a simple ponytail. Her face is bare with deep wrinkles. Her clothes are simple, jeans and a sweater, no jewelry. The glamorous woman I remember seems to have disappeared. I approach the table and sit down opposite her. She looks at me, cries silently, tries to say something but can't. I am silent too, not knowing where to start. Finally, she whispers, "Darussia, you came." "Yes," I say quietly, "I came." We sit across from each other in the cafe, and the silence between us is heavy, thick. Mom cries quietly, wipes her eyes with a napkin, tries to speak, but her voice breaks. I look at her and don't recognize her. This is not the woman who always looked impeccable, with perfect makeup and hairstyle. This is someone else, aged, tired, broken. The waitress approaches and asks what we would like to order. I ask for coffee. Mom does too. The waitress leaves, and we are silent again. Finally, Mom says hoarsely, "I didn't know you were coming. I was afraid you would change your mind." "I was afraid too," I say honestly. She nods, clutching the napkin in her hands. Thank you for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it." I remain silent. The waitress brings the coffee, sets the cups down, and leaves. We both stare into our cups, not drinking. "Tell me about your life now," I say finally, because I don't know where else to start. Mom sighs deeply. "I moved from Miami a month ago. I rented a small apartment here in Portland. 1 room, a kitchen. Modest, but it's mine. I got a job as a cashier at a supermarket. I work 8 hours a day, 6 days a week." She pauses, looks at me. "You know what's weird? For the first time in 23 years, I'm making money myself, with my own hands, and it's scary. But at the same time, it's liberating. I don't depend on anyone. The pay isn't great, but it's mine." I listen, not interrupting. Mom continues. "At first it was awful. My feet hurt so much after my shift that I can barely walk home. Customers can be rude, yelling over trifles. My boss is strict, but I'm hanging in there because I want to prove to you that I can do it, that I'm not the helpless woman I used to be." She falls silent, looks into her cup, then says more quietly, "All my life I was afraid of being alone, without money, without status, without a husband to provide for me. That's why I clung to Ethan, even when he cheated on me, humiliated me, ignored you. I closed my eyes because I thought that without him I was worthless, that I couldn't do anything on my own." She looks up at me, and there is so much pain in her eyes that I can barely bear to look at her. And now I'm on my own. And you know what? I can do it. I can work, pay for my apartment, buy food. I can live without him. And that's the scariest realization, that I traded you for him just like that, not because he was so necessary, but because I was afraid to try to be independent. I take small sips of coffee, feeling my throat tighten. Mom is waiting for me to say something, but I'm not ready. Not yet. "Tell me about those women," I say instead, "the ones who demand money." Mom sighs, her face looking even more tired. "There are 3 of them. Lorraine, she's 58. She was with Ethan for 10 years. He promised her a share in a hotel in Seattle. She's suing him for compensation. Tiffany, she's young, 31. He kept her for 5 years, promised to buy her an apartment. She's threatening to tell the press everything about him if I don't pay up. And Jessica, she's 42. She worked at one of his hotels. He promised her a promotion, money. Now she wants her share." Mom shakes her head. "I've known all my life that he cheated, but seeing these women, hearing their stories, it's different. Each of them believed that he loved them, that he would leave me for them, and he was just playing with all of us." I look at Mom and suddenly feel something like sympathy. Not justification, but sympathy. She's a victim too. Not innocent, but a victim. "How are you dealing with it?" I ask. "I hired a lawyer. Not expensive, but honest. He's dealing with Lorraine through the courts. I agreed with Tiffany that I'll pay her $5,000 and she'll leave me alone. Jessica agreed to $3,000. The money is running out fast, but at least they'll leave us alone." Mom takes a sip of coffee, then looks at me. "Darcia, I want you to know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for money or help. I just want a chance to prove that I can be better, that I can be the mother I should have always been." I am silent for a long time. Then I say what has been weighing on my mind. "When I was in intensive care, I wrote to you. I asked you to pray, and you sent me a photo from the beach. Do you know how much that hurts? To realize that your mother would rather have cocktails by the ocean than be there for you when you're sick?" Mom cries louder, hiding her face in her hands. People in the cafe start looking at us, but I don't care. "I felt invisible my whole life. Ethan called me dead weight, and you kept quiet. He forgot my birthdays, and you made excuses for him. He didn't give me money for school, and you hid from him that you were helping me. I was always something that had to be hidden so as not to annoy him." Mom nods, not lifting her head. I know everything, and I hate myself for it." "I don't want you to hate yourself," I say firmly. I want you to understand that I don't owe you anything, that if I give you a chance, it's not because you deserve it. It's because I want to try to let go of the pain, not for you, for myself. Mom lifts her head and looks at me through her tears. I understand. We sit for another hour. I tell her more about the accident, about the pain, about Mark, who never left my side, about how I felt when I saw that photo. Mom listens, cries, apologizes again and again. I don't say I forgive you because it's not true, but I say, I'm not ready for a close relationship, but we can try to meet once a month. Gradually. Let's see how it goes. Mom nods quickly. Yes, anything. Thank you. When we say goodbye at the coffee shop, my mother makes a move as if she wants to hug me, but stops. She senses the boundary. She just says, "See you, Darusha. See you." I walk to the car where Mark is waiting. I get in and he looks at me with a question in his eyes. How did it go? It was difficult, but it seems okay. He takes my hand and kisses my palm. Let's go home. Over the next few months, Mom and I meet once a month. Each meeting is short and cautious. We talk about everyday things, work, the weather, trivialities. I don't let her get close, and she doesn't insist. Once we meet in the park. We walk slowly, and my mother talks about work. One client yelled at her because the cash register wouldn't accept her card. Her boss defended my mother and told the customer that this was not acceptable. My mother smiles as she tells me this, and I see something new in her. Dignity. Another time, we are in a cafe again. My mother tells me that Ethan sent her a letter from prison. He asked her to come visit him, wrote that he missed her, that she needed to hire a better lawyer so he could be released early. And what did you do? I ask. My mother looks me in the eyes. Nothing. I didn't go. For the first time in my life, I didn't run when he called. I see something real in her eyes, a strength that wasn't there before, and I understand. She really is changing. Slowly, but changing. One day, 4 months after our first meeting, Mom comes to our house. I invite her in for a quick coffee. Mark is at home. He meets her. They talk politely, briefly. Mom doesn't stay long. She leaves after half an hour. But the very fact that she was in my home, that I trusted her with this space, that's a step. 2 months later, we celebrate my 28th birthday. I invite my mother to dinner at home. She brings a cake she baked herself. It's a little crooked. The icing is uneven, but she tried her best. We eat cake, talk, and for the first time in many years, the atmosphere is not tense, just calm. Mark tells a funny story from work, and my mother laughs. I look at them and think that maybe this is what I've been looking for. Not a perfect relationship, not a fairy tale reconciliation, just the opportunity to be together without pain. One evening, a year after the accident, Mark and I are standing on the balcony of our apartment. The city below is twinkling with lights. The streets are quiet. The evening is warm. Mark hugs me from behind, pulls me close. I lean against him and look up at the sky. You know, I say quietly, I expected my mother to be like in the movies. She would apologize and everything would be fine. Some miracle would happen and all the wounds would heal. But no miracle happened. Mark is silent, listening. I continue. She's still the same woman. Just now without money, without Ethan, with a bunch of mistakes behind her, and I'm still the same daughter, with cracks inside that haven't gone away. But maybe that's reality. Not a fairy tale recovery, just small steps, a meeting once a month, a short conversation, gradual trust. Mark kisses me on the temple. Do you regret not helping with the lawyer back then? I think for a long time. No, I'm not obligated to save a person who has been drowning for years and dragging everyone around them down with them. Ethan made his choice. Mom made hers. I don't have to save them from the consequences, but with Mom, I can try. Gradually. Give her a chance to prove that she can be different. Mark turns me toward him and looks into my eyes. You're very strong. Do you know that? I smile. Sometimes I feel weak. Strength isn't about not feeling weak. It's about moving forward even when it's hard. We stand on the balcony for a long time, hugging. I think about the past year, about the accident, about the pain, about that photo from Miami, about the weeks of silence when I didn't answer the phone, about my mother's voicemail that changed everything, about therapy, about tears, about the anger I finally allowed myself to feel, about the small steps we took towards each other. Ethan is still in prison. Mom works as a cashier at a supermarket and deals with her mistress's scandals through a lawyer. She's running out of money, but she's hanging in there. She calls me once a week to ask how I'm doing, and I answer honestly. Not fine like I used to, but truly. I tell her about work, about patience, about how Mark broke the coffee maker and we laughed for half an hour, about the little things that make up life. Mom tells me, too, about how one client thanked her for her smile, about how her boss praised her for her speed, about how she learned to cook new dishes because she can't afford to eat at restaurants anymore, about how she's afraid of running out of money, but she doesn't give up. It's not a miracle. It's just life. Complicated, slow, with cracks that don't heal completely. But it's real. Something we build ourselves, without illusions or expectations of a fairy tale ending. I look at Mark, who is smiling at me, and think, maybe the real miracle is not that everything becomes perfect. It's about finding the strength to live with imperfection, to accept mistakes, to give chances, to set boundaries, to take small steps. And perhaps that is what true love is. Not perfect, not like in the movies, but real, with cracks that we learn to navigate without breaking completely. I hug Mark tighter, look at the city below, and smile. For the first time in a very long time, I feel that everything will be fine. Not perfect, but fine. And that's enough.